Okay, we're just going to take a quick look at two graphs here. I want to remind you on our first graph here on the left, first thing I notice is that this is a line that's headed up, right? So if I'm reading this graph from left to right, like a book, if I start on the left and I find the first place and I look, it's going up. This tells me that I have a slope, remember slope is m, I have a slope that is positive. I know it's a positive slope. I also know from our previous videos that m equals the change in y over the change in x. So I need to find the change in y and the change in x. Remember, we do so by connecting our points in vertical and horizontal. So we're creating that triangle. So if I look here, if I start here and I move up, because I'm going to have to go up to turn, so I'm moving up, I moved up 2 spaces. So that means that my change in y is positive 2. I went up 2, and from here, I'm going to turn and I'm going to move forward 1, 2. Now this is my change in x. I'm going side to side now. And again, that's a positive 2. So when I look at my change in y over change in x, my change in y was a positive 2. My change in x was a positive 2. Now 2 over 2 can be simplified. Any number divided by itself is 1. So my slope for this particular graph would be a slope of 1. Now again, slope. What is slope? Slope is simply directions. It's going from one point to the next. And in these graphs, those points have been given to you. So follow your directions, set your fraction up, change in y over change in x, and then simplify that fraction. If it divides to an integer, then the integer is your answer. If it's still a fraction, make sure it's in simplest form. So let's take a look here. I have 2 points that have been given to me. I'm going to remind myself m equals my change in y over my change in x. So I need to find out what those are. So if I'm moving from this point to this point, if I'm going up or down, I would have to go down. How far did I move down? Well, I moved down 1. So my change in y here would be negative 1. And then I went forward. Now if I'm moving in a forward direction, my change in x is going to be positive, and I move forward 2 spaces. So my change in x is 2. So my change in y is negative 1. My change in x is 2. Negative 1 half. Well, negative 1 half. There's nothing I can simplify there. I know it's negative, and I can see that just looking at the graph. Remember, if we started reading left to right, I see that this is headed downhill. So since it's going downhill, I knew that my slope that is negative. And when I finish my problem here and I'm done simplifying, m is negative. It's a negative 1 half. Now be careful with your fraction. Again, it has to be in simplest form. As we are getting started with slope, I strongly suggest that you are writing m equals change in y over change in x, and you're saying, okay, so what is my change in y, what is my change in x, and I'm simplifying. Here, m is, slope is my change in y over change in x. I'm going to set that fraction up. Here it happened to be simplified, but if not, then I would simplify and I would have my final slope.